angry?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm totally mad. There's no reason for it. This is absolute stupidity. This is a man-made crisis caused by Donald Trump, period.
The great majority of it coming from this area would go to China.
Not this year.
Not this year, right?
China normally buys more than half of America's soybeans, but has bought none this year amid the ongoing trade war. Gaffner says farmers like himself, who overwhelmingly voted for the president, are caught in the crossfire.
We can't help but feel very anxious of wondering why it's taking so long to get this resolved.
Are you angry?
Well, whenever you see the administration meet in Spain and they talk about TikTok instead of farming, whenever we're getting ready to harvest, our clock is already tick-tocking away. The farther we go into this season, the more we're going to lose. And China should have been buying our beans already, and they're not. It's like crickets. We don't want the aid, we want the trade. In our rural area here, that economy relies upon us as farmers to keep that economy going. And so it impacts everybody.
Farmers don't have the working capital they need or the cash flow they need to continue to pay the high expenses that we're experiencing that have really never waned since the COVID days. And much of those expenses are because of tariffs on inputs that we buy. I'm paying that tariff because my importer, John Deere, paid it. They paid it directly to the Treasury. Now the President of the United States is going to take my money and give it back to me and call it a bailout? That's just comical.
This is awful discouraging. You know, we do our very best to grow a good crop to feed the world, and then we can't hardly give it away.
Many growers say they feel betrayed after the Trump administration gave Argentina a financial lifeline, a $20 billion loan. Argentina then immediately dropped their soy tariffs to China, undercutting U.S. farmers.
Donald Trump's trade war and tariff scheme is wreaking havoc on the U.S. economy as farmers continue to feel the pain from lost markets, rising costs, seeds, raw materials, fertilizers, equipment, and maintenance, just to name a few. While tariffs aren't the only thing throwing the agricultural industry into severe economic uncertainty, as you've seen from the nationwide crackdowns on immigrant communities and corporate greed running as rampant as ever, it's also important to highlight that farm workers and family farms aren't the only ones paying for Trump's political gains.
New equipment costs have increased by 60% in the last 8 years. John Deere, a U.S. manufacturing icon, says U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum will cost them $600 million this year. Over the past 2 years, the company has laid off 2,500 workers.
It's like a kick to the gut, right? When you're getting laid off after you've given 20 plus years to the company.
When you think about these tariffs and the ripple effects that they've had, do you think it's worth it?
You know, you hope that possibly in the long term, they would be helpful. Currently here in the short term, no, it's really killing us. We were sold that we were going to do everything we could for the American workers, and we're seeing quite the opposite at this time.
President Trump says he will give farmers some tariff revenue, but the union workers we spoke to doubt it will help them.
Does this sound like something a legitimate pro-labor administration would do? We all knew the answer all along, but it bears repeating, especially now that we're in the middle of harvest season. And if you thought it was just soybeans and other crops that are suffering under these tariffs, well, take a look at this.
Beef prices are higher. I got that. How much more are we actually paying?
Yeah, you're really going to be treating yourself at the grocery store, Stu. Take a look at this. For ground beef, prices are up about 14% year over year, or I should say 13%, I believe. Roasts, 14%, steaks, 17%. The reason why is that cattle inventory in the U.S. is at its lowest numbers in 70 years. The president has said he'd like to potentially give the revenue from tariffs to people in your position. Why is that still important right now? What are you dealing with?
Well, it's important because some of the price drop we've seen on the grain side came from the tariffs. And we're seeing input costs higher because it came from the tariffs. And here at Larson Farms, we've got our cattle operation, we've got our crop operation. The cattle are making money, the crops are going to lose money. So hopefully we can average that together, but we need some support.
Just about a month ago, Fox News, of all outlets, ran this report about rising beef prices while recognizing that the tariffs they helped sell to the American people are adversely affecting them. Now, weeks later, Trump's actions are once again throwing a wrench in the beef industry.
To get beef prices down, the only price we have that's high is beef, and we'll get that down. And one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
But my question is, what do you have to say to U.S. farmers who feel that the deal is benefiting Argentina more than it is them, they are
Argentina's fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can, but don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by a beef deal, sir?
We would buy some beef from Argentina. If we do that, that will bring our beef prices down.
Well, American farmers are fuming over the U.S. bailout of Argentina, which Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent now says could double to $40 billion. Bessent says the Treasury is working with the private sector to raise another $20 billion for Argentina, while the U.S. government also took the unusual step of directly buying pesos for the second time in a week. This is all intended to prop up Argentina's struggling currency and to show support for President Milei, who's an ally of President Trump, ahead of midterm elections in Argentina in a few weeks.
The cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. Would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. Trump openly admitting what critics have been saying all along, his trade policy is about control, not fairness. He's taking credit, artificially propping up prices through tariffs. Then he turns around and blames ranchers for those same prices. And his proposed fix, importing Argentine beef, it doesn't fix a thing. Economists say Argentina accounts for roughly 2% of U.S. beef imports. Not nearly enough to lower prices, but plenty to rattle ranchers who just clawed their way back from brutal years of drought and high cost.
They're willing to hurt American farmers, American cattle ranchers, beef ranchers, and yet they're putting tariffs on foreign goods that are coming into this country, and they're bailing out our farmers after putting the tariffs on, and yet bailing out Argentina, which was supposed to be, the great miracle in South America with Milei. I just am so confused, as I've said several times on this program before, by the economic policies of this administration. They make no sense.
The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, along with other farming groups, say that importing beef would only hurt American farmers, that it wouldn't change the prices all that much.
This is where we drive it home. Trump's economic playbook isn't designed to serve farmers, ranchers, or working people. It's a bill to protect Trump, his political allies, the billionaire class. That's why the same policies he sells as America First end up hurting the very people he claims to champion. While he rewards global allies, everyday Americans are left holding the bag.